going to be about supporting founders in tier 2 and tier 3 cities to bring in next wave of startup ecosystem in India. To grace us for the discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Sharik Plastikwala, CEO of Kafka Ventures. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Vedamata Mudepal, Founder Director, Argo Prudent Technologies. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Maitri Kumar, Co-Founder, Timbuktu Technologies. Thank you, ma'am. And our final panelist, Gopalakrishnan PK, Director, Mizon Kannur, Kerala and Co-Founder of Malabar Angel Network. Thank you, sir. Very good evening to everyone present here. So to get just a setup of the agenda over here, so we are going to discuss about how to bring in more tier 2 and tier 3 startups and how to shift the ecosystem from a tier 1 based industry to a tier 2 and tier 3 setup. Yeah. So we'll start with Mr. Sharik Plastikwala, sir, since you have a lot of experience, everything in this one. And we all understand what the challenges are when we come up as an entrepreneur. Be it tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, it is all the same. But there are some things due to the environment or the ecosystem which is completely different in tier 2 and tier 3. What, according to you, in your opinion, could be these challenges they are facing over there?
So when I started in the whole, so my background primarily was in e-commerce.
Yes.
And I started working in the e-commerce space in 2011 with Amazon. So at that time, and I think that's what even the Honorable Minister was referring to, just the change that has come over the last 10 decades is phenomenal. So when I started working and we were talking to the smaller sellers in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, I remember they used to send their digital catalogs burnt on a CD and actually ship it all the way from the city to Bangalore. And that's how e-commerce in this country started. But I think over the last 5 years, 10 years, with the level of digitization that has really come in, I think that has been one big boundary line that has become blurred between tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So the level field is definitely getting a little bit more, more even. The playing field is getting a little bit more even. But of course, I mean, there are challenges and there are things that are still different. I think the first thing that is still different is accessibility is a big challenge. So I'll give you an example about Kafka and what we do, right, and the accessibility challenges there. So we are a performing arts platform where you can learn performing arts in music or dance or speaking, drama, etc. But the best artists in this country are actually in the top 6 cities. So they are located where the entertainment industry is located, which is primarily a Bombay, a Delhi, a Hyderabad, Chennai, etc. So how does someone in a smaller city really get access to this kind of quality of an artist? And that's the similar thing which artists from that particular location also face when they want to make a career in the entertainment world. Right? So accessibility, I think, is the first big challenge for any entrepreneur. Even though the playing field has become level, I think that's the primary challenge. The second one is around, I think, just social challenges, and we don't speak about them much. But again, building a little bit about what we do, where, let's say, performing arts is sometimes considered to be detrimental or distracting or not a serious career, and that's a big mindset barrier that someone who's a micro entrepreneur, who's an artist in a smaller tier 2 city faces. But I think with a lot of the changes again that are happening at the grassroots level, so if you look at the national education policy and the emphasis on the creative side of the field, that is tremendous. And I think that is helping in overcoming some of these social challenges which smaller micro entrepreneurs and artists in the smaller tier 2, 3 cities face. And the third is, of course, access to capital. I think that's the big challenge that remains. So even in our case where we provide the platform for an artist to come and actually conduct their classes and cater to students across India and internationally, I think they require support in terms of capital to buy the infrastructure and to actually set up and start that particular set of classes that they have. And that's where, a player like Vananam is super helpful for them, because, offering them capital at reasonable rates, which makes sense, is something that, is something that they really look forward to. So I think these are the three broad challenges: access, social mindsets, and capital.
And I guess the next question is tailor-made for ma'am. Ma'am, you have walked an entrepreneurial path from a tier 2, tier 3 city. So what do you think should have been there, which you found it over here? Because you have been incubated by IMB NSSL, right? So there was something which was here which was lacking for you over there. So as an entrepreneurial experience, from an entrepreneurial point of view, what do you think should have been there in your place?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. See, I am one of the, I can say, talent migrant from rural area to Bangalore in search of job then. Correct? So, entrepreneurship, we were never taught to think like an entrepreneur, think it as a career. We have always been taught to study well. We were one of the toppers in the school. But yet, our goal was to find a job, never to be a employer, right?
Sort of like a job seeker.
Yes. So I think exactly what you said. Even today, the mindset in tier 2, tier 3 city, parents of having same mindset that, you have to study well, find a good job in a good company. See, starting a startup or working for a startup is still not considered a good career choice, right? So, when it comes to tier 2, tier 3 cities, first of all, the problem is the talent wants to work in metros, the lifestyle and the glamour around it. And when they go back home, they can always claim, I'm working in Bangalore or Delhi. That makes a lot of difference for them as well as their parents. That is one thing. And the mindset of parents has to change, or the society, the acceptance. Today, because of a lot of initiatives from government, even NSRCL, where we have been incubated, it made a lot of difference to us. And government has many schemes like this. Currently, we are a part of acceleration program from the GAIN. There are a lot of incubators who are helping, women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general. And now Government of Karnataka has an Elevate program exclusively for, tier 2, tier 3 cities. There are a lot of things happening, but still the mindset of the people has to change. Today there is little bit of, acceptance for working in startup or a startup founder in cities. That has to, penetrate to tier 2, tier 3 cities. I think it's a long way, but with a lot of initiatives and, what you can say, awareness generation, things may change very soon, yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. And Maitri, ma'am, since ma'am started with the talent pool and everything, so ma'am was telling that it's all migrating to tier 1 cities from tier 2, tier 3. What do you think can be done to address this area of, what you can complication, or you can say a challenge also in different word? How do you address this?
Okay, well, I am first of all glad to be in this august company, and thanks to the team who organized such an event here. I run a startup, or I co-founded a startup called Timbuktu Technologies. Why this subject is more interesting for us today is we deal with students, we deal with the younger generation, and India being the country of young population, we are a platform where we provide part-time job opportunities for students. When I say part-time, it is part-time, not just internship that is rewarded with any other things. So day in, day out, we've been interacting with this generation who are upcoming entrepreneurs. Like I said, India is being a young population country. We are supplier of workforce to the whole world today. That's how India is looked upon, right? So in this situation, are we producing that quality workforce? I mean, entrepreneurship, I'll come to that. Because, there is a whole discussion about tier 2, tier 3 cities, and there is absolutely immense talent. I come from a city myself from tier 2, and when, there is the whole discussion, like they said, the social mentality, the social mindset, or the opportunities, or the whole of that discussion is mainly now vanishing somewhere, because thanks to internet, and this whole generation, at least I particularly deal with, are digital native. They're born with internet. They're the internet era people. So the knowledge about entrepreneurship, or having that skill set is already been penetrating very actively. I was just doing my research, and it was very surprising and good to know that 50% of recognized startups in India come from tier 2 cities. That means there is already that wave. It is a matter of overcoming challenges, which is definitely one among the core challenges today is the talent pool. Or the migration of talent from tier 2 cities to these metro cities where, like ma'am was addressing, it's too glamorous. Also, we feel when I was in college, I thought the only way I can excel is by going to Bangalore. I don't think so I can do anything. But now, with my experience, I can say that is slowly coming down. I mean, people are realizing, also one of the post-COVID effect, we can say that, there is certain decentralization of the talent that is taking place. People are understanding, remote working is picking up, and the major challenge was, finding the right talent or the human resource. It's always been a challenge in tier 2, tier 3 cities, along with other infrastructure challenges like electricity and other things, right? But yeah, manpower is something that can be addressed. So at Timbuktu, we mainly believe, or what I personally believe is, we'll have to provide opportunity for these younger generation to monetize their skill and time wherever they are. With brands entering tier 2, tier 3 cities. Today, you take up any brand, I'm like Reliance or D-Mart, and all of these people are going to tier 2, tier 3 cities because the major population chunk of this country stays in tier 2, tier 3. So the brands are penetrating. There is McDonald's and Domino's that has reached every city today. It's just a matter of polishing and connecting these dots and creating those opportunities at local level at the early stage possible. We should not consider we should finish our graduation and then only think of, doing something for ourselves. Time is changing. We are equipped with knowledge and internet today. I think that will play a major role, providing opportunities at a young age in tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Thank you, ma'am. And Gopal Krishnan, sir. Yeah. Good evening, sir. So whenever we speak about any program or anything, there is always the element of government which comes into it. Even here we see speakers speaking about different kind of programs and everything. So how critical is this government support over here? Not just from a program point of view, like from an infrastructure point of view, like are there enough infrastructure points being developed in tier 2, tier 3 cities? And is it enough to, propel the growth in those kind of cities, sir?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. So I've been in the startup ecosystem over the last 5-6 years, and let me just share some few data points before I specifically answer your question. So in India today, we have about 75,000 DPIIT, that is Government of India's department, recognized startups. 75,000, maybe it's 80,000 today as we speak, right? 60 to 70, maybe 65% of this 75,000 startups are in top 7, top 8 cities. Okay, so the dispersion of the startups in non-metros, right, is very, very small. If you look at the investment that's going, 95% of the investments are going into the startups which are in the metros, right? So it may be very difficult for a startup in Kalaburgi, okay, to get an investment. To get the eyesight of an investor, right? Because there are no investors in Kalaburgi, right? So barring a Deshpande Foundation, which is doing phenomenal work in Hubli and trying to develop the local ecosystem there, you don't have the supporting ecosystems in cities outside Bangalore, right? Or cities outside, let's say in Maharashtra, if you look at Mumbai and Pune. So that's really a problem. And the third data point is about angel investors. People like me who are individual retail investors. We are not VCs, we are not private equity players. We are people who are investing based on our own hard-earned money, whatever we have probably saved over a period of career in corporates or running our own businesses. So angel investors, there are about 15,000 of them. There's no official count, but I guess there are about 15,000 of them, spread over about 30, 40 angel networks. There's a Hyderabad angel network, there's a Chennai angel network, there's no Bangalore angel network. I run an angel network called Malabar Angel Network, which is a regional angel network in Kerala. So about a few angel networks. Now, out of 15,000, I would assume that 95% of them are in metros, right? So can you get an angel investor in Kalaburgi? I doubt. Can you get an angel investor in Bijapur? I doubt, right? So government has done phenomenal work. Like somebody said in this panel as well as the earlier panel, this Elevate program has taken the startups revolution beyond Bangalore in the last 3 years, right? But you can see a difference. I see at least 100 pitches in a month, right, of startups. I can see a significant difference between a pitch which is from a startup founder in Bangalore and a startup founder in, let's say, Kalaburgi. No disrespect meant. The IQ level must be same, but the exposure is very low, right? The confidence and the ability to speak in a language which the investor understands, right, in a business language is extremely low, right? So that may not be the problem of the founder. I think that's the problem of the ecosystem, I would say, right? I won't blame the startup founder because it doesn't have that much exposure. It doesn't have access, as he said, to events like this. How many events are held? You can see in Bangalore, if you look at in a month, there are at least 10 events. Go to Mysore, it may be 3. Go to Kalaburgi, it will be 0, right? So basically, the ecosystem has to move beyond the metros. Government has taken some baby steps. I don't think that's sufficient, right? For example, they must push the ecosystem players to hold events like this in different districts of Karnataka and figure out how somebody mentioned about building a pipeline of students, right? Coupling academic institutions to, incubators. All that work has to be done and that work has to be real. It can't be, very ad hoc. One day I wake up, I do something, another day I don't find interest, etc. So I think that consistency in putting efforts by the ecosystem in taking the startup world beyond Bangalore, beyond Mumbai, Pune is simply right now, not there in India.
Sir, since we spoke about ecosystem, Sharik sir, so we are clear that there is some ecosystem, a well-developed ecosystem over here, which is quite lacking in this one. So that is where the lack actually some kind of happens. So what can we do as startups? What can we do as entrepreneurs over here? Like how can we take it over there? Because at the end of the day, as all startups will say, we need talent. We need we need ideas. There are a lot of ideas over there. It's just that they don't get a shape or a format out of it. So how do we ensure that?
See, some of the challenges is what we have discussed, right? In terms of access being a challenge, talent being a challenge, capital being a challenge. I think if you think about where India was, say, 20 years back, right? That's the same thing that people used to say about India versus the US. That, oh my God, look at Silicon Valley, it is so far progressed, even versus a Bombay or a Bengaluru or any other city in India. And I think the place where it starts in most cases is around our educational institutions, right? That's where the thought of entrepreneurship, that's where the zeal of entrepreneurship, that's where the mindset of entrepreneurship really takes birth. And that's true for India, that's true for most other geographies in the world. So I think strengthening local institutions and local educational institutions in some of these cities, enabling them to teach things which are beyond just the academics and the board exams and the focus on the traditional career paths as they're called. I think that's step number 1 in my mind. I think once we achieve that, which is, even have, like someone else discussed, entrepreneurship is actually a part of the NEP, right? And, we formally teach it in schools and formally help people understand it. More important than teach, help people understand what it means, right? I think that's step number one. I think the next step comes with industry. So, startups in the larger cities, frankly, helping the startups in the smaller cities by actually giving certain contracts and giving certain work. Like that's how the ecosystem develops, right? A larger startup gives opportunities to smaller startups. And that's how the smaller startup starts flourishing and then eventually becomes larger and then helps the next one out. So you have to pay it forward. And I think we have been very lucky that we are sitting in a city like Bangalore, and I think it is our role also to pay it forward. Then third is the support of capital. I think that's where some of the things that you mentioned are so critical about ensuring that even angel investing, which is typically the first check for most startups, is really democratized. You have someone in a smaller city actually cutting, 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupee angel investment. So I think these are the three steps, but I think it all starts with the educational institutions.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, this question is for you, ma'am. So when we say all this startups or whatever it is, when we think about a startup, what comes to anyone's mind? I'm from a tier 2 city, so whatever comes to our mind is just some technology startup or some computer guy sitting in front coding, because that's what we are always thought of as startups. That's what we see in movies. Our environment possesses like that, but it's not just that. Startups are a range. You could be anything, right from an agro business, a cold storage can be there. It can be any kind of shop over there which can do all. There's a lot of potential into it and everything. So we have do you think that we have to educate people on that it's not just one kind of startup we have to think about. There are opportunities in your locality also which should be focused upon. Since I was saying Kalburgi, something in Kalburgi should have been famous, right? That some economy runs around something. So do you think that some kind of fostering needs to be done over there?
See, that is again, as you said, that's the right thing. When you say some startup, you always think of tech. Of course, mine is a tech startup and more so in the electronic industry. And we are actually, what you said, we are trying to collaborate with Deshpande Foundation and other, local institutions for, taking interns and grooming them. It helps, it's win-win. We groom them and, they get this exposure. So that's one of the things we are trying to do. See, this word entrepreneurship, we were not aware of early, let me be honest. When I started, I didn't know I was called an entrepreneur. I just knew I want to do something. That's how it started. But these days, the word entrepreneurship is really glamorous. People are liking it. It's happening in the cities. I'm sure it will, go down the things, tied to cities. And in Kalaburgi also, when they hear of, some entrepreneurship, when they know even, anything on millets, there are a lot of startups coming up in, food sector, clothes, lot of things which I don't know. I cannot, name right now. I'm not able to, rather. So when that is also entrepreneurship, I think that is when they'll think, okay, startup is not just tech, there are other things also. I had one experience, what the previous panelist said, even today, I am being addressed as sir, especially in electronic industry, they don't think a woman is doing this work. When I said, there was actually, we were getting assemblies done, and he was, relative of my husband. So when I was trying to interact, he called him and said, this is how it has to be done. Then he said, I don't know anything about this, it is only Veda who is taking care. So they just cannot believe there is, a woman also can do this. So similarly, they don't know even non-technical work can also be an entrepreneurship, and that can also attract investment, or it can be glamorous. So that once that thought gets in, I think things will change even in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, for you, we have been talking about talent drain from tier 2 to tier 1, tier 3, tier 2, all this is happening and everything. And Sir was pointing out that education is an important factor, wherein we have to properly set up, there should be an education infrastructure in tier 2 and tier 3, and which should be there. So from a tier 1 perspective, ma'am, like how can you make, see, when I look at something, I see business in tier 1, but I don't see the same business in tier 2 and tier 3. So how can we convince an educational institution, to set up an institution in tier 2 and tier 3? Because immediately it's all going to be around Bangalore, like how you said Bangalore is flashy. Big cities are flashy. It's all, psychologically we want to study here. So how do I ensure that, like if I set up an institute in tier 2 also, people will come there?
See, there is a deeper things which I see here when we speak of especially educational institutions, because we day in, day out interact with educational institutions. What is happening is there is some story or a formula that is built around. For example, when I was in college, for me, the nearest example or the ambitious example was my father's friend's daughter studied in so-and-so college, got placed in so-and-so company, and this is her annual package. For us, in Tier 2, the highest examples were these, you will end up getting into some CT or get into this college, get into campus, and this is your fat check that you will get it. But what happened thereafter? She or he enjoy that work? Did they excel in that? Or did they quit? Did they do anything? So the story after that placement or the check never came to us, nor there was something that I could take back. So this is still the same with the Tier 2 and Tier 3. So for them, +2 or we will do so-and-so graduation and I will go do extra 1 certification courses and then I'll end up in a job here. So to bring that mindset of entrepreneurship, we'll have to somewhere scratch that idea of skill. I mean, you are gifted with certain skill, you are gifted with certain talent naturally as a human, and you need to put that out, whatever it is. So for us, entrepreneurship is basically a passion or a self-driven thing, right? So these are the stories that needs to reach Tier 2, Tier 3 cities where beyond a job, there is a world. Beyond, 9 to 5 culture, there is something more. So for that, education institutions definitely play a very major role. For me, again, I'll go back to the same sentence like I spoke in my last question, that giving that opportunity to monetize. This whole generation is a reward driven. You tell them, I will give you, anything that is non-monetary, non-rewarded. They're not in mood to do. Because the whole ecosystem today is like that. Even Tier 2, Tier 3 city guy, when he's watching an IPL match or any other program on TV, every second advertisement today you see is of trade markets, fintech, bitcoins, there is a discussion around this. But these Tier 2, Tier 3 city kids doesn't know how to actually, get into that financial independence or invest that 100, 200 on Demat account or any other fintech platform. So we'll have to scratch that, I feel, this is personal view. We'll have to scratch that you are gifted with a skill, and we'll have to create those opportunities for them to monetize these skills and the time for these, especially Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. And colleges play a very, very strong role in this. Along with, you can't bring everything inside the campus. Students need to get out the campus, and they need to figure out where they belong, what their passion is. Unless we bring that culture at college level, I feel it will take a long road to create every second house with an entrepreneur. With educational institutions, the focus has to be in not just imparting skills, but we'll have to create opportunities for them to monetize the skills. So that I feel, once they taste the money and the success at the very early age, they will understand, okay, there's a larger picture to it. The day I earn 100 rupees and then I'm like kicked to get my another 50, 30 extra rupees. So that's where we feel, entrepreneurship at Tier 2, Tier 3 can be pushed at educational institution level in a greater way, because you are getting that attention. At least they're inside the college, inside the campus. What better way to get their attention, right? So.
Thank you, ma'am. Gopal Krishnan sir, this question is like tailor-made for you. Since you are an investor from a Tier 2 city, you say that, like almost 90 to 95% of funding and everything happens in Tier 1 cities. An entrepreneur from a Tier 2 is going to be very passionate about his idea. Only then he's going to risk everything, he's going to come out of it, which is not the case in Tier 1. They have a lot of other options, but for Tier 2 to come out of the risk facility itself is a big thing. So, what can you give us pointers to Tier 2 cities entrepreneur to enable him to get funding from an entity which is based out of tier 1. They are exposed to tier 1 people. How do you expect a tier 2 guy to get a funding out of there?
Yeah, like I said, I think this first check or the angel investment movement has to go beyond the metros, right? And I will cite the example of Malabar Angel Network, which I am kind of running. So Malabar Angel Network, which is primarily meant to encourage startups in Kerala. Now, the first 10 investors in Malabar Angel Network is from a place called Kannur, which I don't know whether it's even a tier 4 town. Okay. Now, what is the profile of these investors? The profile of these investors is somebody is running a food court, somebody is running an event management company, somebody is running a medical shop. They're all reasonably wealthy, but not super wealthy like HNIs, right? But they came forward and said, look, we need to encourage startups, right? We need to encourage startups. They need to get funding. They can't get funding from investors in Bangalore or Mumbai or Pune. So let's pool together money and support this startup. So our first investment, which is into a online distribution of safe to eat fruits and vegetables startup, that was funded by these 10 investors, who had nothing to do with fancy titles from corporates, who were not running large businesses, who were not really HNIs in that sense. But they came forward as a kind of social work and said, let's encourage startups. So I think we need to kind of get these kind of smaller groups in tier 2 and tier 3 towns. For example, let's say, take the example of Karnataka, right? Now there are so many sugar barons I know in northern Karnataka, right? Now why are they not looking at investment in startups as an alternate investment class, right? Instead of only depositing money in bank or in real estate or in their own business, they can also look at investing in startups as an alternate investment class. Now the government, which you asked in the first question, has to do a lot of this work, right? I think the government has to kind of democratize angel investment into these cities by asking the local HNIs and local businessmen to look at startup investing as an investment class.
Thank you, sir. Since we are running out of time, I'm just going to put one open-ended question for all of us. So India as a country is going to be demographically dividend. So we have to reap the benefits out of it. Otherwise, in the long run, it's going to be a big headache for us. So what next for startups over here? There is a talent pool over here. So what next for startups? How can they capitalize out of it? It's an open-ended question. Anyone can share your thoughts.
I think the biggest thing is expanding the pie. Like, for example, as I mentioned at Kafka, what we run is a performing arts platform, right, where artists and small micro entrepreneurs in smaller cities are actually conducting their classes. I think the biggest thing that we can do for them is to really expand their horizons and expand their addressable markets. And that for us is really taking them international, like allowing them and enabling them to actually serve students, learners across different geographies and across different boundaries, as well as monetize skills by actually expanding the different avenues that they have. Like, for example, one of the programs that we have is enabling them on how to become creators. And interestingly, the other big thing that the digital revolution has done over the last 10 years is really democratize content consumption. You have content for the first time in, vernacular languages, in small language, in like different dialects, which, earlier were never given an opportunity and a platform. So I think it's an interesting dichotomy, but doing both things. One is expanding the horizons and enabling them to present themselves internationally. And of course, that adds to India's own soft power as our culture starts becoming known and being accepted outside. A phenomenon that you're seeing with Korean pop, for example, in India today, right? Or American culture and American entertainment as it was 20 years back. So doing both things. One is expanding the horizons, but the second big thing is enabling them to create in the language which is truly theirs and serve even very, very local audiences, the smallest audiences to the largest audiences. So I think that's really, in my mind, the answer.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Yeah. See, the kind of space he is in, he is trying to bring the, platform to the talent in, across, smaller cities as well. My problem is the other thing. See, there, I feel there is lack of employability. There needs to be a lot of skill development happening. That is very, very crucial, especially in technology. They are engineers, but they are not really employable. Yes, not even book, only marks. That employability, that we have to work with educational institutions where, they don't stick to, they have to be really agile to, produce their students have to be employable. So that skill development is very crucial. And government is, of course, Skill India. They have done, tremendous. They have been really having vision to take India forward, and this will definitely help the startup ecosystem tomorrow. And yeah, we see a bright future for startups.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would like to add to her point. Ma'am, I would like to take it one step ahead. So skilling anybody is like sharpening the knife, and you just keep it, it will get rusted. So skilling plus a way to monetize the skill. I'll go back to that point because it's a continued effort. I mean, we all are, equal stakeholders in this, entrepreneurs, non-entrepreneurs, Tier 2, Tier 1. It's like he said, outsourcing of junk of our work to Tier 2, taking that and, knocking doors of colleges. I mean, it has to be stitched very well. Again, investments, opportunities, everything needs to be stitched well. India being, like the country known for its population, human resources, something that we should effectively use. And there is opportunity, I feel, in even human resource, HR tech, how to effectively use the resource we have. Turn the disadvantage of population to advantage of supplying qualified, seasoned manpower to the world can also be one of the best opportunities for us.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
No, my feeling is that the startup founders have to innovate more, right? I think that's the key differentiator in future. There is no place today in the world for yet another Swiggy or another Flipkart or another Byju's. I think there's no place. So you have to do something very, very different if you have to grow, if the market has to pull your product instead of you pushing your product or service, and if you have to catch investor attention, then there's no option but to innovate, do something very, very differently from existing landscape of products and services.
So I think that would be all. Thumbs up. So thank you all for being wonderful panelists. I guess some presentations are in order, so just receive them. Thank you.